Annyeonghaseyo, goeiedag, goeiemiddag, and good evening. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tianki101, and today we are jumping into the topic of the topic of DNF or DNFing a book. So when I was an avid reader in my teens, I cannot remember if I ever DNF'd a book or if there ever was a book that I didn't really like and I stopped reading it. So I'm naming this video my first two ever DNFs or something in that nature because these are the first two books that I can remember DNFing because I cannot think back to many years ago when I was a young lad where I DNF'd a book. But prior to a few months ago when I started reading again, I didn't know that something like DNF or the term DNF even existed. And I heard people talking about DNFing books and I kind of understood what it meant, but I literally had to go and Urban Dictionary that shit. Just so that I can know what DNFing means, because I was just very confused. And I'm very sad about the books that I had to DNF, because they were two books that I were really excited about. One of the books was a challenge that I set myself, but after getting into it a little bit, I was just like, this is not gonna happen. And I'm trying my best not to feel guilty about DNFing books, but I think that's gonna take a whole spiritual journey that I still need to go on to get used to the idea of DNFing being okay, because it felt kind of like I wasted money and kind of felt like I wasted time. Not that I think these books are necessarily bad, I just don't think these books are for me for various reasons. But I would not dissuade people from trying out these books, as I do think they have their own valid and merit. I think they all have their own valid and merit to them, and they are actually quite popular books. But for me, they just didn't work. It was just a no. It was just a no. And the first book I was actually so excited about because there was some queer representation in it, and I was like, yay for the queers. And then I didn't like it, and I didn't get far in the book. So with that said, let's jump into our first book. Let's take a look at God Killer by Hannah. I need to look her up. I cannot remember the surname now. Hannah Kaner. So I had to go to Goodreads because I read this on my Kindle app. So I had to go to Goodreads to find what the story is about, because for how far I got in the book, I can't really tell you what the book is about. So I thought I would read you what the book is about so you know, and maybe if you're interested, go check it out. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad book, I just think it wasn't for me. So according to Goodreads, it said Kissen's family were killed by zealots of a fire god. Now she makes a living killing gods and enjoys it. That is until she finds a god she cannot kill. Skedi, a god of white lies, has somehow bound himself to a young noble, and they are both on the run from unknown assassins. So these are three characters whose POVs you do get to read. Kissen's, Skedi, and then the noble young girls whose name I forgot because it has been a little while since the last time I read this. But then you get a fourth character, and it continues. Joined by a disillusioned knight on a secret quest, they must travel to the ruined city of Blenraiden, where the last of the wild gods reside, to each beg a favor. Pursued by demons and in the midst of burgeoning civil war, they will all face a reckoning. Something is rotting at the heart of their world, and only they can be the ones to stop it. Dun dun dun! And again, from that, reading that, this book sounds so interesting. The book sounds so good. Sounds so interesting. I think the second book is called Sunbringer, I think is the second book in the series. But I only managed to get about 19% of the way through. That's about 54 pages. It's only about 290 pages, I think, if I remember correctly. And for the life of me, I could not get a liking to one of the four characters. There were some things that were interesting that you read about Kissen's past and how Kissen is now, because Kissen is a badass character, is really a badass character if you go look at what she does and what happened to her. is really a badass character, but I didn't find a liking to them. The way that the author writes wasn't also my favorite style of writing, if I can put it like that. I just didn't enjoy it. And I've read a few other reviews of people saying the same thing, where they just couldn't get a grapple on the characters, they couldn't get a grapple on the writing style. And that is such a big part of any book that you try to read, is the writing style, because for the next few hours that you're jumping into a book, that's going to be your main thing, is the writing style. And thank you, Maya, for throwing that off the table. But I just could not get into God Killer, and I decided at the end, you know what, I'm just gonna DNF it. I thought, you know what, maybe I'll try to read a little bit at work when I maybe have some free time, just to see if I can get into the flow of things, maybe if I get further in the book. But then I just thought, at the end of the day, there are so many other books that I want to read and that I could be reading, that I shouldn't waste my time on a book that's just not doing it for me. And that was my first DNF of 2023, because I only started reading again after a few months of years and years and years of not reading and just basically playing games. But here we are now doing videos about reading. The next book that I unfortunately had to DNF is one that I think a lot of people might have not issues with, but might, I don't know, might not be too happy about to hear that I DNF'd it and the reason for DNFing it. And that is, unfortunately, The Witcher. I was looking forward to this. I bought the first two books. My challenge was to finish The Witcher before the end of the year. Um, Zapowski, I cannot say that man's name. I think is a good writer. I think he's a great writer. I just think he isn't the writer for me. I got about 100 pages into this. Like I said, I bought both books. The other book, I think, is on my shelf over there, and I won't be continuing it. And I think part of the reason again, is the writing style and the way this is written. Not that I think I originally would have had a problem with it, but I think I have been over influenced by other media of The Witcher, that reading it, because it is told so differently, that it feels there's a huge disconnect for me. So I've played a few hours of the game. I've watched other people play The Witcher, well, specifically The Witcher 3, the game, The Witcher 3 game. I haven't watched anyone play like The Witcher 1 or The Witcher 2, really. Only The Witcher 3 have I played myself a little bit. And then, of course, I watched the Netflix show The Witcher as well. And due to, I think, those influences in or on my mental state of The Witcher, and how I understand The Witcher, and how the story was portrayed, and how the story was told, how people talked, what it looked like. When I started reading this, I just could not get into it. I got about 100 pages into it, and I was just not vibing with it. I tried. I thought about doing like a chapter every other day. Again, it was something that I thought I would try, but at the end of the day, I just thought that this is, again, just not the book, not the series for me. I don't think he's a bad writer. I don't think he's a bad author. Although I know there are people that have a problem with how he writes female characters. But then again, I didn't get that far in the book where I can fully say that was a reason for me DNFing the book. But at the end of the day, two books that I DNF'd, basically the biggest reason is because of the writing style. At the end, I just didn't enjoy how they used prose to convey and tell their story. And at the end of the day, also, absolutely nothing wrong with that. As we are journeying through our reading lives, we are going to DNF more and more books. As I go through my reading experience, my reading journey, I will be telling and sharing with you my DNF stories, why I DNF books, which books I DNF, because I think it's interesting to hear how other people reacted. I know that God Killer is a very is I don't want to say famous, but it is a highly regarded book from what I've heard from other content creators, and then also from what I've seen other people's reviews of the book, and of course The Witcher is The Witcher, so I know it is amazing. But at the end of the day, that just didn't work for me, and that is okay, and I need to learn to be okay with that. So yeah, I just thought I'd pop in, jump in, quickly do a quick little video about 2 of my first ever DNFs. Technically not. Let's not go into the semantics of it all. And why I decided to not continue reading those books. I hope you enjoyed the video. In the comments down below, what's your thoughts? What's your feelings? What books did you do in DNF that are very famous? Or what books did you keep reading and did not DNF because they are famous? And then at the end, you actually love them. And maybe I should just push through and not be a little bitch about it. I don't know. You tell me. But yeah, thank you so much. Don't let fear interfere with your happiness. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Groete, liefde, vrede, vreugde, geluk, blijdskap, liefde. All my dinkies for julle. Until next time, I'll say bye-bye.